Hello everybody, it's Nancy News here, and today we got a lot of breaking dates today. So the first news coming today is coming from Kazakhstan, where we've just gotten news that Vladimir Putin, the president of the Russian Federation, has just landed in the capital city of Kazakhstan, in Astana. So before President Putin actually arrived in the capital city, we had news that Kazakhstan's Su-30 SM fighter jets actually escorted the president to the capital city, where he arrived safely. So if you can see here in the bottom left corner, we can see Vladimir Putin arrive in the capital city of Kazakhstan, where he was actually met at the airport by the president of Kazakhstan. So let's just fast forward a little bit to the meetings between the two leaders. So the Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Kazakh counterpart signed a joint statement to deepen their strategic partnership in the context of a new global order in the Kazakh capital city of Astana. So Russia and Kazakhstan emphasized their focus on strengthening cooperation within the CSTO military alliance and increasing the combat readiness of the collective forces. Kazakhstan has also been invited by Putin to obtain the status of BRICS partner state. So, very big news. We've also got news that Kazakhstan takes the solid second place among Russia's investment partners. So this was stated by Putin, and President Putin also highlighted the bilateral trade turnover between Russia and Kazakhstan, which has exceeded 20 billion this year. So that's all we actually have about Putin's visit to Kazakhstan. And now let's head to some political news coming from Russia today. So first we'll just start off with some statements coming from the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, Sergei Nashkin. So Sergei Nashkin stated that Russia categorically rejects any options for freezing the conflict in Ukraine, said the director of the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, Sergei Nashkin, following the 20th meeting of the Conference of Heads of Intelligence Services of the CIS member states. He said that Russia categorically rejects any freezing of the conflict in Ukraine, according to the Korean or any other scenario. Moscow needs a solid and long-term peace that resolves the core reason for the crisis in Ukraine, Nashkin added. And now let's talk about the economic situation in Russia. So we got news that the Russian ruble tumbles to the lowest point since March 2022. Russia's central bank has labeled the Russian ruble's official exchange rate at more than 111 against the US dollar for Wednesday, marking its weakest valuation since the early days of Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. So the Russian ruble's decline comes amid a new draft of sanctions targeting the Gazprom Bank and heightened tensions with the West, alongside what appears to be Kremlin's policy favoring a weaker currency. So the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov stated that the rise in the dollar exchange rate will not affect Russians because they receive their salaries in rubles. We've also got on news that the Russian MOD, so the Russian MOD, has officially acknowledged that during the latest airstrikes by the Ukrainian armed forces with the ATACMS missiles reached their targets. So the Russian government has officially acknowledged the latest strikes by the Ukrainians with American-made ATACMS missiles. So the Russian military department has confirmed at least 2 strikes by the ATACMS American-made missiles in the Kursk region on the S-400 anti-air positions in Russia. The Russian Defense Ministry also stated that Russia is preparing retaliation actions. So again, the Russian Ministry of Defense said that Ukraine hit the Kursk region with American-made ATACMS missiles twice over the last 3 days. Retaliation measures are being prepared by the Russian ministry, and the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated that if you test our patience for too long, it will definitely run out. When talking about the recent ATACMS missile strikes on Russia. And while on the topic of the Kursk region, we've gotten a map that was released by Clash Reports showing the recent map of how the Ukrainian control of Russia's Kursk region has diminished. So if we can see here in the bottom left corner, we can actually see the start, well, the peak at the Ukrainian offensive into Russia, September the 10th, and now the current Ukrainian positions. So obviously the map that you're looking at here is the heights peak. So I should actually update this map, but there you go. We've also gotten some news coming from Ukraine itself. So we've got news that the U.S. President Joe Biden, is apparently seeking $24 billion from lawmakers to support Ukraine and repellish U.S. weapons before he leaves office. The source Politico said. We've also got news that a Ukrainian delegation led by the Ukrainian Defense Minister Rusum Umanov is set to visit South Korea to request weapons aids, including air-to-air missiles and artillery. We've also got news that the NATO Parliamentary Assembly supported Ukraine and called for it to be provided with medium-range missiles, so the Tomahawk missiles, which have a range of 5.5 thousand kilometers. So the NATO Parliamentary Assembly supported the idea of Ukraine gaining the Tomahawk missiles and that are able to even hit Yekaterinburg, I'm pretty sure. So very big news. We've also got news that according to Lamy, the UK advisor, the UK does not intend to send its military personnel to Ukraine, Lamy said. So the head of the UK Foreign Office noted that this is certainly the current position of the United Kingdom, and it remains so. Nevertheless, London intends to continue to support Ukraine with military support so that it can conduct military operations next year. And we've also got news coming from Bloomberg that Europe sees threat in future influx of Ukrainian veterans with smuggled weapons. So, according to Bloomberg reports that intelligence communities across Europe are preparing for possible post-war threats, such as the influx of Ukrainian veterans and smuggled weapons that could fall into the wrong hands. So at the end of the war, obviously there's a lot of weapons that have been provided to Ukraine. All of these weapons might find themselves many places in Europe that could potentially go into the wrong hands. So this was reported by Bloomberg. We've also gotten some news coming from Slovakia. That's the Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico says that he intends to take part in the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the victory over fascism on May the 9th in Moscow. He said this again, and he also said that he will be most likely participating with the Serbian President Vučić. We've also gotten some news coming from Germany that the ThyssenKrupp, I'll just put this name here in your bottom left corner, Germany's largest steel maker, plans to cut 11,000 jobs, over 40% of its steel division workforce by 2030. So the company intends to reduce its steel production capacity from 11.5 million tons annually to between 8.7 and 9 million tons. We've also got news that the German Foreign Minister does not rule out Benjamin Netanyahu's, the Prime Minister of Israel's, arrest in Germany on the basis of the ICC warrant. She stressed that the federal government adheres to the law. And now let's head to the European Union in Brussels. So the head of the European Union, von der Leyen, wants the EU to catch up with Russia in terms of defense spending on GDP. So she said that Russia is spending 9% of its GDP on the military, and Europe only spends about 1.9% of its GDP on the military. And she wants the EU to catch up with Russia in terms of defense spending. We've got some news coming from France that France retracts its decision to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he enters its territory. So after signing the ceasefire agreement, which we will be talking about a little bit later, France says that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, enjoys diplomatic immunity on French territory and will not be arrested if he arrives in France. Now let's head to the United Kingdom. The world's oldest man, according to the Guinness World Records, has died, the BBC has reported. So Englishman John Tinniswood, who survived 2 world wars, the Spanish flu and the pandemic, and the coronavirus, has died at age 112, a few months after he was recognised as the world's oldest man. We've also got some news coming from Ireland, and more specifically coming from Conor McGregor, that Conor McGregor has been dumped by a whiskey brand he founded following sexual assault verdict. So the UFC star has been dropped by Proper Number 12 Irish whiskey, the brand he co-founded, following a recent court ruling in which he was found liable for the sexual assault of a woman in 2018. And now let's head to Turkey. We've got news that the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has visited Turkey and has visited the TUAS, the heart of the Turkish defense industry and the producer of Turkey's homegrown fighter jets, the KAAN, hosted by the defense industry of Turkey. So a former American colonel stated that Turkish defense industries can do much to help NATO and Europe restore deterrence against Russia. So very big news. We've also got news that the US no longer has any obligations to Turkey's use of the Russian S-400 system, the head of the Turkish Defense Ministry said. The S-400 air defense system can be deployed in Turkey in combat mode within 12 hours, the minister said. We've also got news coming from Lebanon. So this is probably one of the biggest news today. So we've got videos of large convoys of Lebanese armed forces are now heading to southern Lebanon. So we can see here in the bottom left corner, we can see the Lebanese army began to move troops to southern Lebanon, preparing to take up positions between the Israel Defense Forces and Hezbollah. So we've got news coming from Joe Biden that Lebanon and Israel have approved a ceasefire proposal. So a ceasefire is now in act between Israel and Lebanon. The ceasefire is meant to be permanent, the US President Joe Biden told reporters on Tuesday night. And apparently 10,000 Lebanese troops will be deployed to the south of Lebanon to try and stop the Israelis and the Hezbollah militants to fight. So very big news. So there's been a ceasefire that has been declared. So very big news. We've got some statements coming from Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, that tonight we will bring a ceasefire agreement to the cabinet. We will maintain full military freedom of action. And Benjamin Netanyahu said that if Hezbollah tries to arm itself, we will attack them. So the Prime Minister of Israel says if Hezbollah takes this ceasefire time to arm itself, Israel will break the ceasefire and attack them. So interesting news. We've also gotten some more statements coming from the Prime Minister. Netanyahu said that we are determined to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons. And he said that the war will not end until its goals are achieved and the residents of the northern settlements return to their homes. And now let's head to Yemen, where we've got news that the Yemeni Houthis have yet again targeted another container ship. So if you can see here in the bottom left corner, video has been published of an aftermath Yemeni strike on the MSC Tavashi container ship. So if you can see here, we can clearly see that this ship has been hit by some sort of weaponry from the Houthis, allegedly. So we don't know what type of weapon the Houthis used, but all we know is that the Houthis struck yet again another container ship. So interesting news. Let's go to Africa, where the only news come from Africa is that Nigeria and China trade relations reach new heights. The Vice President Kashim of Nigeria has highlighted the remarkable trade relationship between Nigeria and China, describing it as one of the highest in Africa. In 2023, the bilateral trade reached an impressive $22.6 billion, growing at a remarkable 33% annually. So, Nigeria and Chinese trade relations reach new heights. We've also gotten some news coming from Afghanistan and Russia. So we talked a little bit about yesterday how Shoigu arrived. Well, Shoigu, the former defense minister of Russia, arrived in the capital city of Afghanistan, Kabul. We've now just gotten news that a bill to exclude the Taliban from the list of terrorist organizations had been submitted to the State Duma, and probably by the new year, the Taliban will no longer be considered a terrorist group in Russia, Shoigu stated, and apparently this is a result of yesterday's negotiations between Shoigu and Taliban leaders in Afghanistan. So overall, this is an expected development. We already got news. It was a couple of months ago when I just started this channel that Kazakhstan already removed the Taliban from its terrorist list, and now it seems that Russia is next on the list. Now let's head to China, where we've got news that Li Lange, the former chairman of the Bank of China, has just been sentenced to death with a 2-year reprieve for corruption and illegal activities. Specifically, he was found guilty of accepting bribes totaling over 121 million yuan, so that's approximately 16.8 million US dollars, and illegally issuing loans. So the former chairman of the Bank of China has been sentenced to death. We've also got some news coming from the Financial Times. It reports that China has just launched an investigation into Chinese Defense Minister Dong Jun in connection with a corruption scandal. He would have been the third consecutive serving or former defense minister to be investigated for alleged corruption. We've also got some news coming from Japan that a huge, strong 6.4 magnitude scale earthquake has hit Japan's Ishikawa province. So that's around about here. So I'll just highlight it here. So we've got news coming from this province here in Japan that a 6.4 magnitude scale earthquake has just hit this side of Japan. And I'll keep you updated if there's any more news about that. We've also got some news coming from Argentina that the president of Argentina has announced a ban on gender reassignment for prisoners. Let me just get to Argentina. So he stated that with us, this nonsense ends. Criminals will not be able to change prisons under the pretext of gender identity. So the president of Argentina has just announced a ban on gender reassignment for prisoners. Now the last news is coming from the United States that Donald Trump has just promised to impose 25% tariffs on goods from Mexico and Canada. He said that the tariffs will remain in place until drug trafficking and illegal border crosses are addressed. So Donald Trump said that on January the 20th, as one of the first orders, I will sign all necessary documents to impose a 25% tariff on all goods coming into the United States. This tariff will remain in place until drugs, especially fentanyl, and illegal migrants stop invading our country. And he said that he will impose tariffs on Mexico and Canada. We've got news that Trump has nominated John Pilon as the next Secretary of the Navy. We've also got news that the President-elect Donald Trump's team is considering direct talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to address escalating tensions and nuclear risks. Trump and Kim held 3 historic meetings, if we remember, but no lasting agreements were achieved. So, very interesting news. And that's all really the news I actually have for you today. I am Non-C News. I'll try and provide you news that medias around the world do not show you. I do these videos hopefully daily, so consider subscribing and liking. Thank you very much for watching. and I'll see you all later. Bye.